future, shattered dreams. End of times ain't what it seems.
Hello, friends. This is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today, January 21st, 2026. We got special guests on the line, Seven Seas and Ruckus. So I'm not going to take that much time with the intro today. We're going to focus on ICE tyranny, surveillance state, technocracy, tie it all together here. Day 3 of the World Economic Forum. Trump was over there. We're also going to talk about directed energy weapons. And it all ties together here. So a little bit about today. There was a fire reported at Davos on day 3 that caused an evacuation. Our dictator in California was over there, Gavin Newsom. We're also going to talk about, I want to give these guys takes on the alternative media. Alex Jones, InfoWars, says that Trump has defeated globalism at the World Economic Forum or something like that. I don't think, I know I don't see it that way. I don't think our panel sees it that way either. We'll go over that. Yeah, and quickly, push that like, share, subscribe, notification button as we do many long hours of broadcast with very little commercials here. So that's the least you could do to help us out, break through all of these censorship algorithms. Allegedly, it's being reported yesterday that X has released its algorithm over there on GitHub, open source, so everybody can take a look. But they lie about everything, so who knows? That's floating around on the X as well, but good luck trying not to be censored. It's a never-ending battle here. So give us that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button, follow our guests. The links to their X accounts, and you can find all their other accounts through there, is in the description below this video. Go give them a follow. We had 3 on this day in history, just 3 seemed important to me. On this day of January 21st, going back to the year 1793, we saw Louis, the King of France, what would it be? Louis the 26th of France is executed by guillotine in Paris following his conviction for high treason by the newly formed National Convention during the French Revolution. Just saying, these things have happened in the past. Very messy as it was. On this day in 1880, we saw the first U.S. sewage disposal system separate from storm drains go into operation in Memphis, Tennessee, a major untold part of public health. Besides, I know the miracle saved everybody's life, but let's take a look at indoor plumbing as a major, very underreported factor in reducing disease here in America and around the world. That's another story for another day. And then also on this day in 2017, we saw the Women's March, the pink pussy hats. Everybody knows them, loves them. More than 2 million people protest worldwide in the Women's March against Donald Trump, with 500,000 women marching in Washington, D.C. on this day in 2017 with the pink pussy hats. And let's here's our segue, and we'll bring on our guest. Here's our favorite CEO, Larry Fink of BlackRock, talking about the moving faster to digitized currencies. And so we're getting very close here now to, and Seven Seas is going to talk about the digitization of everything. We're getting close to them, making us opt in to that digital system and giving us no choice.
I think the movement towards tokenization, decimalization is necessary. It's ironic that we see 2 emerging countries leading the world in decimalization, in the tokenization and digitization of their currency. That's Brazil and India. I think we need to move very rapidly to doing that. We would be reducing fees. We would do more democratization by reducing more fees if we had all investments on a tokenized platform that you could move from a tokenized money market fund to equities and bonds and back and forth. We have one common blockchain. We will, we could reduce corruption. So I would argue that yes, we have more dependencies on maybe one blockchain, which we could all talk about. But that being said, the activities are probably processed and more secure than ever. I think the movement towards
It's all for our own convenience. Here's 7Cs. How you doing this Tuesday? Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah. I'm doing excellent, Sam. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's good to be back on a show. You've always like approached everything in good faith. Anytime I catch your show live and everything like that, I'm just screaming yes, because you're like one of the few that like sees it all. From the technocracy aspect to like the global geopolitics and everything like that, and it's just refreshing. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, we're trying not to be, government propagandist hack shills like the majority of clownfluencers on the internet seem to be, and trying to keep our credibility intact here. Let's bring on Ruckus, our normal guest over here on Wednesday. How you doing this Wednesday, Ruckus?
Normal. I take offense to that term. People have labeled me a lot of things in my life, Sam, but normal is one I will not accept. I refuse that label, sir.
We'll say great and golden.
Domestic terrorist is fine. Don't call me a leftist. Don't call me a righty. And certainly whatever you just said, get that term out of your mouth. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for having me again, Sam. Yeah, you know how I feel about your program because I support what you do by coming on and joining you once a week. I'm happy to be joined alongside a brilliant guest, I might add. This guy right here does a lot of good work. In case you're not familiar with him, make sure you follow him after the show today. So it's going to be a fun one today. Thanks for having me.
The link to Ruckus and 7C's X account right here in the description below the video. Go give him a follow. Well, you're our Golden Wednesday guest, Ruckus. Okay. Is that a little bit better for you?
That works for me. Gold, love it. Well, although I am a fan of silver these days. I don't know.
Well, I guess let's jump right into it. 7Cs here. The tokenization of everything. Larry Fink was just alluding to as much there at the World Economic Forum. What is this tokenization of everything? Is there explain it to our audience who hasn't heard about the tokenization of everything?
Absolutely, man. So essentially what is the game plan for what they're doing right now is there is institutions, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, and the World Bank are actually propositioning a global unified ledger. So that would essentially be a blockchain that everything will feed into, whether that is through like communication tokens, because you can have cross-chain tokenization as well, like you can exchange Ethereum for Bitcoin, so on and so forth that way. And essentially what they will do is they will take every transaction that is done on a blockchain and feed it into this unified blockchain. And I think Larry Fink actually mentioned that specifically, talking about like a unified blockchain there. And what they're going to start doing is essentially assigning token IDs to different assets. Right now, I think the United States actually just launched tokenized trading for stocks on the New York Stock Exchange in the last 2 days or so. And it's going to start with stocks and bonds and different like debt asset classes and things like that. And essentially what this does is it provides a transaction ID from beginning to end for every coin that is exchanged on the market. It has identifying information within the token IDs for each person, as well as the product. Typically, they'll take things like your MAC address, your device ID, your IP address, and use that to create like a random string of characters, and that is your like unique identifier essentially. And when you start to take into account the digital ID that has already been passed in the United States and is coming up in other countries, they will essentially be assigning each of us our own sort of token through that as well. So when you pair that with like our current crypto markets, you have to do like KYC, which is know your customer. And they are actually slowly mandating that every single exchange that wants to keep operating above board has to implement this KYC, which includes giving them like your full name, your legal information, your financial information, and things like that. And so what they're trying to do is essentially nullify physical currency, any sort of like physical asset, because you can't exactly like track and trace in-person physical exchanges. And at the end of the day, ultimately, it is about control. And when it comes to the tokenization of everything, it's essentially, right now we're talking about just applying it to different financial systems. But the end goal for this 5, 10 years down the future is completely eliminating all like gray markets, any secondhand markets, without any sort of purview by like the central authority, in the sense that, if you want to go buy something from the store, that will have a token ID. It will show that you purchased that specific product at, this specific location. If you want to exchange that with somebody, like maybe a used car or something like that, you will have to transact that on the blockchain for it to be legal, and be recognized. And that's basically how they're going to track who owns what with everything. The end goal for this, and sorry, I'm getting a little long-winded here, is ultimately tying crypto value to energy, and their ultimate goal is to do that through carbon taxes. When COVID happened and when 2020 happened and Bitcoin kind of took off with the mining operations, there was a lot of talk about like, the strain on the energy grid and things like that. And that is sort of going to segue us into this thing where energy becomes currency, because all of the blockchains, they take not as much as like the AI data centers per se, but they take massive amounts of energy to mint and calculate and update all the nodes on the network and everything like that. And so what you essentially have is you're going to create a monopoly on all of the energy and all of the assets and all of the resources of the planet, and put it in the hands of a few people that run the digital exchanges themselves.
Sounds like a bright future for us here.
Yeah.
In the chat on the Rumble, they're saying mining our electric from our blood.
Mm-hmm.
There's that kind of stuff too. There was also a comment, I believe, from Carrie about how they're going to tokenize us, and you're absolutely correct. That's also one of the things. Larry Fink, by the way, has been talking about this for a very, very long time. I mean, if you pull up some old clips of how long this he's been drooling over this more so than Lindsey Graham has been drooling over the Iran bombing potential. No lie. I mean, so this is something that they really want. So I'm not the least bit surprised. I'm very concerned about it because it takes away ownership. It takes away privacy. It takes away all of the things that generally us as human beings have been able to enjoy for what it is. Take it with a grain of salt, depending on where you live. Your results may vary as quote unquote freedom. A lot of that will be going away pretty much instantly overnight as soon as they can quote unquote tokenize everything. And to folks who are not familiar with cryptocurrency at all, when he's mentioning tokens, correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't this somehow related to, like, maybe people have heard the term NFT before, which is called a non-fungible token? There's that token word again. Do you have can you explain the difference between why is one token different? Is there a difference between a token, an NFT, a coin, and what these people are talking about, or is it kind of all the same thing?
So essentially, when it comes to a token, it is a digital representation of a set amount of value. Long story short, it is like fiat currency, but in a digital sense. And when you talk about tokens, there's a couple of different types of tokens. You can have tokens that are like intermediaries between exchanges. You can have NFTs, which were basically just a token that came with an image file attached to it. You have obviously currency tokens are huge. There's the currency token specifically, that has to deal with, there's different maths for different currencies, but a lot of it's just stems on how much supply is distributed, how much money is in the liquidity pool, and different things with like the trade volume, supply and demand, market value, and things. And so when it comes down to it, it is essentially just like an avatar basically for like any sort of set of value. When you take like Tether, for example, they have their Tether coins, and those are pegged to the dollar. So they do some unique engineering in order to try to keep it within, I think it's 1/100th of a penny of a dollar, at all times. So it is essentially you're just paying for a little thing that says that you claim to own that this much of a value, whether that's like your national currency, if they have like some sort of other asset class in the liquidity pool, or whatever that looks like.
What could possibly go wrong, right, Sam?
Well, Larry Fink says it's for our own convenience and to reduce corruption. So, I mean, if we can't trust Larry Fink, I don't know who we can trust of all the bankers. He's getting that contract to rebuild Ukraine after they blow it up. So
Yeah.
very trustworthy there, right? And he's the head of the World Economic Forum, whose logo just happens to be 666. Let's put that up again and people can take a look. Just look over Larry Fink's shoulder right here. I don't know. You tell me. It kind of looks like 666 to
Yeah.
me. But I'm sure that I'm just reading into that. I'm just paranoid, I think.
That's their new logo with the planet with the chains around it. No, I'm just kidding. That's one I made.
So kind of off subject, but on the same subject. They're engineering, quote, Bible prophecy, bringing in the mark of the beast system here now. So it's going to be engineered by bankers, but then somehow they're going to try to make it seem supernatural and an act of God. I don't know how how are they going to tie all this together? I guess if you believe so much in genocide, then you just turn a blind eye. I don't know how they can truly tie it all together. Any ideas, thoughts, gentlemen, how they can tie all this together to make their banker false prophecy seem supernatural and get the majority of believers on board?
I have some theories, but they're not very popular.
Let's hear them. I don't see how can they possibly do this.
So we've always heard that the end times is going to come about through like the Abrahamic prophecy of Israel and Iran sort of getting into a war with each other, that's going to basically involve the entire world, exhaust all of us to the point where we just kind of like give up. And then the Antichrist comes in and does his thing, right? I'm not a subscriber to the Abrahamic religions, and I personally think that they're kind of being used as like a tool right now, where they, I think that Iran is fully invested in fulfilling this prophecy because according to their belief system, like the end times is a good thing. Same thing with Christianity, same thing with Judaism, right? And so you have you have Iran, who actually just today it found out that their central bank just dumped about $500 million into Tether, which is tied to Israel through multiple avenues, including Brock Pierce, including Howard Lutnick, including Epstein, including all of these things. And I think back to things like Iran Contra, where we were basically selling weapons to Iran through Israel, and I'm like, I don't understand how people don't see that they are sort of working in tandem with each other. So even, you have things like Iran tweeting about when and where they're going to attack Israel. And it's like, if you're actually at war, I think that there would be a little more, I don't know, like confidentiality and things like that. So it just kind of really seems like a lot of theater. And when you think about things like drones and AI and the way that they're able to sway like mass perception on social media, I could foresee them using the war and then possibly having like some sort of AI or drone Jesus or drone Messiah just like appear in the air somewhere, and people just manufacturing that the apocalypse is happening through general consensus.
Wow. That's weird because I also have an unpopular theory and it's very similar to his. Yeah, I do believe in one of the Abrahamic faiths. Specifically, I'm a Bible believing Christian, but not like the generic ones that you hear about, and certainly not a Zionist one. So I have a completely different interpretation of prophecy. And I have also within that my own personal interpretation that might not be the same as someone else's. So I also believe that maybe some of this is smoke and mirrors. Like Sam, think about it this way, for instance, are you the viewer out there, if you've heard the story about the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, which is truly more useful to you if you're the entity behind that and you want to exert a massive amount of control on the population? Is it to just swoop in with this obvious form of the mark of the beast system, which everyone's been waiting for thousands of years or whatever? It's been talked about, and it's not like it's a secret, right? And people bring it up all the time. They literally go to Jared Kushner's page and call him the Antichrist, and he doesn't care. You know what I mean? So it's like, what if it's just a trick? What if that's just a red herring? What if the prophecies, for instance, that have been interpreted as the future are things that have already taken place in the past? There's a lot of folks who believe that, myself included. What if this is just a show to further their own personal agenda, which the reality of which is far more frightening than anything you read in the Bible or in Revelation? And it's very strange to me that all of these people want to usher in the end of the world because that means for them a new glorious age for them. It's quite a very elitist way to feel. I mean, because the end of the world is not a good thing for those who are not of that particular faith. Let's say for Christians, Jesus comes, it's the second coming, it's the end of the world. That's great news if you're saved. That's horrible news if you're not saved. It's like hell. I mean, it's like, whoa, you think you've seen some scary stuff. You ain't seen nothing yet. So it's like, why would you want to wish that on the world? Wouldn't that light a fire under your ass to go start saving some people? No, you're like, oh, I'm going to support Israel and its genocide because then Jesus comes. Yay. Yeah. So, yeah. I believe it's a more powerful tool to trick people into thinking that that's what's going on, because then they have all these different factions that they can just mess with. And then at the end of the day, their plans are just slowly rolling out in the back door. And it's like too late. And it may or may not look like the mark of the beast, but, you know, history rhymes. It doesn't always repeat, and it doesn't necessarily always fulfill the prophecies of some ancient writings.
Yeah.
To me, it's looking like the global. They've announced the new world order is done. The neoliberal world order since World War II, done, and done. We're moving on to a new phase of global governance, which is technocracy. Right? All signs point toward Trump is building the North American Technate here, 7 Seas. I have the map here. Surprisingly, I did a little searching. Cornell University right here is publishing about it. And so here's your official North American Technate map from Cornell University. There, everybody should go research it up. It's very official right there. And so we're eyeing Greenland is hot right now. We've already taken Venezuela, probably take Cuba and Mexico and these little Central American countries without much of a fight, I would say. Where are we at in the whole? Well, Trump's using the ends justify the means noble lie strategy. If we don't steal Greenland, China and Russia will steal Greenland. So we need to steal it first. Where are we at with all this 7 Seas and building the North American Technate?
Well, I think believe it's Ruckus, right? He brought up a good point in the sense that, you know, I think that a lot of these like systems and tools and operations that they have are already in place, and essentially what we're seeing on the global theater side of things is they are basically manufacturing or orchestrating events to lead the global population down like the path of least resistance, to convince us as though this was like the natural order of things. We just naturally came together as, a one world government through all these different, through Trump annexing Venezuela and Greenland and stuff. Like, we needed that for America. Meanwhile, China, the permanent paper tiger for us, is also, building relationships and launching their own digital currencies and AI systems. And so essentially you have exactly what the Cold War was this like fake arms race where we're competing when actually it's just all an excuse to implement these technologies, reveal them to people that they've been in place for a while. I talk about DARPA a lot, and the fact that like they had the NSA tokenization, almost 30 years ago at this point. They have tried eCash, was something that was going around in the 80s that failed. A lot to your point about like history rhyming. I think we're seeing Trump is essentially like an edgier version of Ronald Reagan. In the sense that, Ronald Reagan came from Hollywood. He was an actor, almost got assassinated, quote unquote. The relationship with Israel itself, Reagan was trying to build like an Iron Dome for America, same way Trump said that he's
Star Wars, right? Remember Star Wars?
Yeah.
They're gonna shoot all the Russian nukes down with lasers from space.
Yeah.
Keep us
Yeah.
safe.
War on drugs too.
Yeah. And too, like, I'm sure you guys remember the speech that Reagan gave where he said the one thing that's going to unite us all is like an extraterrestrial threat. And so like, I don't think it's any secret that, they're starting to let like the UFO disclosure stuff get tossed around a little more. And I think it's to sort of normalize this. To
Briefly on that, what are your thoughts on that? Is it our own technology? Is it alien technology? What's going on with all of the UFOs quickly? Here, I don't really cover UFOs. I'm just like, yeah, it's all government psyops. But
yeah.
But hey, NASA announced we're going back to the moon in a space race, part of the Cold War with China. We're in a space race with China to go back to the moon, and it's unlimited funding to beat China to the moon by 2030. I don't know if I think they said this year. NASA said this year we're going to the moon.
Okay, I guess they're waiting on the next Sora update to get some footage. I've never really subscribed to the alien belief thing when it comes to like the Roswell, New Mexico stuff and the Area 51 stuff. I know about like the Rockefeller ties in that, and ultimately their whole goal is to establish like this sort of Emmanuel Goldstein type character that they can blame all of the world's problems on that isn't one of them. And so I think that that the aliens are going to be the way that they capture sort of like the non-believers that can't really think for themselves. I think that some of the people that subscribe to those faiths will be able to see the shit for what it is. But a lot of them will be captured, and then you have the non-believers who won't accept the apocalypse on its face. So you need like a scientific, secular excuse for them. And so I think that they are going to try to kind of use it as a way to say like, oh, all these weird things are happening. Is it demons? Is it aliens? Maybe they're the same thing. Maybe it's both. Really, really hard to kind of tell which direction it's going. But I absolutely am under the impression that like all the UFO stuff is basically just a way to set that up and normalize that in people's heads. At the end of the day, I have a policy that's like, if you're making the claim, provide the proof, and I've never seen enough proof to convince me that they're real.
They keep doing these quote disclosures all the time, and nobody cares anymore. Like, what? Come on, man. Come on.
The American one is gotten so out of control with the slow rolling of the disclosure. It's so obvious that the Bank of England had to issue that report to do that scenario where they're like, well, what do we do if the U.S. admits that there's aliens? How will everybody survive the financial collapse that's going to come as a result of that? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Isn't that an admission by you folks that the aliens are real? And you're just like, we know they're real. And it's like the U.S. is going to tell everybody they're real. Now we're screwed. Like, what? This is so wild. I think everybody would just be like, who cares? Aliens. I think they've thrown so much at us that everybody would just shrug off the aliens. I'm hoping.
Yeah. You'd have maybe 10,000 people just screaming online saying like, I told you so. Donald Trump could probably take to the podium and lift off his face mask, reveal that he's a lizard, and still get votes. Like,
It would just be like a normal day on X and Facebook, right?
Yeah, we'd
Except
be talking
somebody on
about
Kalshi and Polymarket will have made a killing the day before on the. Just kidding.
probably the Trumps. He's like, okay, son, I know you're on the board of Kalshi and Polymarket. Go ahead and set this up. Take everybody's money. I'm gonna lift it up for just a second, and just enough, so that we can shave some points off, just like the NFL players.
Did you guys see that thing where apparently it's who's Cabbage Patch Doll again? Sam Carolyn Levitt, the Trust in Trump lady.
Yeah.
Okay, they had a bet. There was
She's
a
the
big
White
bet
House
going
press
on.
secretary. Show her some respect for all her propaganda.
Okay,
and
well, the White
lies,
House
all
press
right?
secretary, there was a bet over whether she was going to go to a certain amount of time on the clock, and she literally like paused for no reason just to make it that amount of time, and somebody made a killing. I'm like, what the heck are these people doing?
Yeah, it was like it won't go over 6 minutes and 54 seconds, and she stopped right at like 6:53.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's pretty rigged. It's pretty rigged. But hey, look the other way. Or okay, let's move on. Let's move on to ICE. You guys, don't tread on me. Comply or die. Waving the same flag here. ICE shot another person today in LA. I guess it wasn't ICE. It was technically Customs and Border Protection. All federal agents out there wielding firearms in the public. A Customs and Border Protection officer was injured this morning during a targeted operation in South Los Angeles. Side note, if you haven't seen that movie with Cheech Marin, Born in East LA, everybody should check that out for some comic relief. And now the claim is being made. All ICE has to do to kill someone is claim that they've weaponized their vehicle. It's the officer said weaponize the perpetrator they were after that they shot attempted to flee and weaponized his vehicle and rammed law enforcement. We're seeing the trend now of the weaponization of vehicles claim made by Border Patrol, ICE, by the feds, and that's an excuse to go ahead and open fire. Now, another one of these incidents, I don't think this was a citizen, but remember the old, here's LA County Sheriff's. It was a link in this article, NBC article. And I'm sure you guys recognize the symbolism for LA County Sheriffs right here on their badge.
And the spirals. Wow.
Yeah. And this is their official, you could see right there with the gray LA County Sheriffs. Just throwing that out there for those that follow the symbolism of all this insanity. I noticed they posted that.
I assure you, I have no idea what you're implying there, Sam.
So what? And then this story, and then we'll get your guys' take on this. AP's reporting immigration officers assert sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant. Memo says, and so according to an internal Immigration and Customs Enforcement memo obtained by the Associated Press, marking a sharp reversal of long-standing guidance meant to respect constitutional limits on government searches. The memo authorizes ICE officers to use force to enter a residence based solely on a more narrow administrative warrant to arrest someone with a final order of removal, a move that advocates say collides with Fourth Amendment protections and upends years of advice given to immigrant communities. So they don't need no stinking warrant to enter your home. They just need an ICE issued memo here. Now, what is your reaction to that? Let me just flash it up here quick so everybody can go look into it yourself. There's the AP article about it. They don't need no stinking warrants. Are you hiding illegals underneath your floorboards over there, gentlemen?
None over here personally. But it's somebody was actually talking about how this isn't something that is constitutional, and that they it's obviously like a violation of the Fourth Amendment right. I would say probably First Amendment right, potentially Second Amendment right, depending on like what happens at each house. But when it comes down to it, you know, at the end of the day, national security doesn't give a shit about your consent, your rights, your well-being, your health, your privacy, any of that. So, you know, when people say like there's no way that they would start doing those things here, I can't help but be dumbfounded because like this is the same government that's helping to facilitate a genocide. It's the same government, you know, that participated in World War II, that helped cover up 9/11, that helped, you know, push the pandemic.
They just ran Operation Warp Speed on us.
Yeah, yeah, and so you know, I look back at the fact that we've had, you know, 200 plus years of very well documented corruption, and them always like being the worst possible version of themselves that they can be in the form of government. It's like they have a monopoly on corruption, violence, imprisonment, mass surveillance, all of these things. And so when it comes to like being shocked at the level that they would stoop in order to maintain control, like people should never be surprised.
Well, I mean, shooting somebody in the face 3 times and then calling her an effing bitch. I don't know. I don't think I was expecting to see that one in my lifetime. The ICE and the CBP, I would like, what's the difference between the two? If we had CBP, why do we need ICE? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you know. Man, this is a terrible tragedy. It's interesting that they're going with the vehicle thing again. Maybe this wouldn't happen if everybody's vehicles were electric and could be turned off with a switch or something neat and fancy like that. I mean, I'm just saying there's usually some sort of technological solution. And those thug cops shooting people, that would never happen if it was just drones and robots patrolling the streets, right? Oh, you know, even better, that probably wouldn't happen if everybody was monitored, tracked, and traced using their biometric data tied to the blockchain every time they leave their house, thanks to Amazon Sidewalk and Ring cameras tied to Flock and all of that stuff. And Palantir, oh, sorry. Stop me when you've heard this one before, everybody. Yeah, a lot of this seems to me like, yet again, an excuse to roll in the technocracy. Yeah, it's, for our safety, of course. You know, thanks to these dirty immigrants, the criminal immigrants, the illegal aliens that came in under Joe Biden. Venezuela packed up the truck full of prisoners and dropped them off on our front lawn. It's terrible. But ICE, they're the heroes. Thank you, ICE. Yep, we know the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like where your mind is, because the second I heard weaponization of vehicles, my first thought was, oh, okay, so they're going to take away everyone's ability to drive for our safety. And I think you're right.
That's the language they're using. That's the one they used in the Minnesota Good shooting. She weaponized her vehicle. That's the language the government uses. And now this one in LA weaponized his vehicle, so they're going with that language. Weaponized vehicles. Yeah, and you guys are domestic terrorists and not allowed to drive anymore because you may weaponize your vehicle and put a law enforcement officer's life in danger.
I ride a skateboard, dude, and I'm not going to weaponize my skateboard because I saw what happened to those people who were weaponizing their skateboards back in the last time there was civil chaos. Never mind. That's another story. What happened to that guy, by the way? Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah, anyways.
He's still around. He's probably going to end up like trying to run for governor or senator or something.
Actually, I just answered my own question. I remember I just saw something about him the other day. He's like happily married and they have a kid on the way. So good for him. It looks to me like he's enjoying a normal life for once. Good for that kid.
Yeah. When it comes to like the ICE situation, I made a post. I think it was the day after the Minnesota shooting, and I said, ICE is basically infiltrated by way of training, equipping, financing by the IDF directly. They have these. It's the National Counterterrorism Seminars, and basically for like since 9/11, they've been taking handfuls of law enforcement officers from every level of government, from local police all the way up to federal agents and everything in between, and sending them over to taxpayer-funded trips to Israel to go train with the IDF, Mossad, Shin Bet, and the Israeli police force. And so, like, when it comes to, you know, the tactics that are used, the narratives that are spun, the way that they sort of set all of these things up and teach these people how to conduct themselves, it's all being done by the IDF. And you know, they use Israeli spyware in order to spy on people. They use Israeli methods. A lot of people will remember that Derek Chauvin knee press was actually taught to the police by the IDF as a way to detain somebody. And so when I see, you know, these same people who claim to like call out the criticisms of Israel and you know, Zionism itself, turn around and then lick boot by the same controlled government, it really just, I was sort of shocked at the level of stupidity, I guess is really the only way to put it, coming from those people, because at the end of the day, it's like the number one enemy to your autonomy, your agency, and your sovereignty is the government. So them ever having more power, control, purview is always bad. And I don't know why the libertarians seem to be the ones lapping it up.
They train them that we're fighting a bunch of damn terrorists and you're a domestic terrorist. And they come back here with that training and you're all Hamas.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. America. But people can't seem to wrap their minds
and
around
that particular unit there, the IDF, they're quite well trained themselves, so it makes perfect sense that they're the ones training us, right? I mean, it's fascinating how many of these things lead all the way back to 9/11, including the existence of ICE. Isn't ICE an extension or a part of the Department of Homeland Security, which did not exist until post 9/11 as a result thereof of said 9/11?
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people think that 9/11 was just Patriot Act, war on terror, but there were financial systems that were set up. There was, you know, government institutions that were set up, you know, global policy that was set up, trade policies that were set up, and so many
What was
things.
Larry Fink up to back then, out of curiosity?
From
I'm thinking of Larry Silverstein. Never mind. I get those confused.
Yeah, I think right around 9/11, BlackRock was still selling their DARPA created Aladdin program to all these companies so that they could basically control the market with an algorithm.
Which leads us right back full circle to this tokenization, because at the end of the day, I was like thinking, if people were familiar with the way they rig the stock markets, it's terrible what they're doing, but they're limited because the stock market is only open certain hours of in certain days. Like it was closed on MLK Day, but cryptocurrency, the blockchain, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and people are quite concerned about what they're going to be doing behind the scenes. You know, all things considered, their history has showed us that they cannot be trusted, but they're going to be the ones who are the centralized area of control. Don't worry. Trust us, bro. We got you. Trust in the plan, right?
Absolutely. And to your point too, like, you know, right now with stocks, like there is still the, I guess, accountability, I have to put in quotes, for the company to do well and like act in good faith upon the investors. You know, the same thing with like, I would consider like national currencies. You know, if the dollar does bad, we get mad at government, you know. But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, they have no accountability. It just ends up becoming like a will of the market. And so they can do all of these things basically at like a hyper accelerated rate because they have less regulations. They have, you know, the 24-hour trading thing, and that nobody's going to be responsible for the fluctuations of the market. And it's just going to be a way for them to siphon it from retail investors ad infinitum.
There's some legal precedence to this. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this or heard about this, but I think it was Tornado Cash. It's one of these. It's called a mixer, where you can take your cryptocurrencies, mix them together, spit it out in the end, and suddenly you don't know where it came from. It's like a way to make your crypto private, because your crypto is not private at all for the most part. But anyway, so the creator of the software was in some legal hot water, and there was a court case involving this. And one of the I call this a precedence. It didn't get a lot of reporting, but I caught wind of this. It's interesting that they determined, the courts, a higher court determined that the software, everything's okay. He's off the hook or whatever, because the software, it's all a smart contract is what it's called. That's the way these cryptocurrencies execute their handshake agreements on the ledger, is through what's called a smart contract. It's a set it and forget it. Once it's programmed in, you can't change it, which is why people are worried about central bank digital currencies, because they can be pre-programmed to, say, expire after it's issued. After 30 days, if you don't spend it, poof, it's gone. It can be pre-programmed that you can only use a certain percentage for certain things, like 90% of it can be used for food and only 10% for entertainment or whatever, right? That's all smart contracts. Well, in this court case, they determined that a smart contract is a computer program. It's like a tool, like a calculator or a Black Mirror device, like a phone, and it cannot be held legally responsible for like any like losses, stealing your stuff, scams, fraud, any of these things. It's completely off the hook. So, you know, you want to talk about indemnity, and we had a world of hurt of trouble when they gave like a magic wand of like, oh, you're never going to get in trouble, Mr. Big Pharma maker. Why don't you just go ahead and make your miracle juice without any care in the world, and we'll worry about it later. You know, let God.
I guess they're saying ICE, you have Stephen Miller, the feds are saying ICE, you have indemnity, shoot whoever you want in the face. We'll laugh.
How's that working? They took
indemnity for drug makers, indemnity for police shooting people in the face. Now they're pushing indemnity for pesticide makers. They want no liability for all the damage from glyphosate to every other pesticide you could name that's well documented, very bad for your health. It kills the bugs, for crying out loud. But what the hell? Keep pumping it into us and have no liability whatsoever.
Trust the plan.
It seems fair, right? Last on the surveillance police state rolled out by ICE, they're tying in Amazon Ring cameras now are hooked up to ICE system. Futurism is reporting, and so yeah, all these. It was just to catch your neighbor stealing your package. No, it turns out it's all part of this giant surveillance system. Amazon Ring back in October announced its devices would be looped into the network of Flock AI surveillance cameras. 7Cs. What about this? And ICE, of course, has access to all of this, all these quote private security camera networks.
Yeah. I did a show recently with Jason Basser where we kind of talked about the Flock cameras and how they're partnering with Palantir, with ICE, with the local police officers. How there are Flock cameras that are mounted on the front of police cruiser vehicles in order to scan license plates. All of that going through that private company that shares all of its databases with Palantir, the federal government, foreign governments as well. And really what it is they're doing pattern tracing. So trying to see where people are, when, and basically creating like this location profile on people. And Flock cameras have been around for a while, and there's been different companies and stuff that have been slowly doing it. But I don't think that the average person is fully aware of just how many of these cameras are in like their local metro. I would even challenge everybody, like, go downtown and circle like your favorite 5 blocks, see how many cameras that you're able to find there. And understand that those are probably all meshed together. When it comes to the Ring doorbells, I would say smash your Ring doorbell, get rid of it immediately if you have one. Get a closed loop system with like a DVR. So I actually have something like that sort of set up at my house where my cameras run into systems that are not online. So it's not in any way connected to the internet. It's just a PoE into a digital recorder that I just plug in. So you're able to monitor yourself without being connected to the internet.
Your own closed circuit system.
Yes, and that's honestly like the best advice that I can give to people, because the second that you connect to the internet, somebody is going to see that regardless of like any VPN that you use. Most of those are traveling through Israel at this point. Cape Technologies is a huge basically umbrella corporation that has like 7 or 8 different VPNs underneath it, and that's owned by an Israeli billionaire named Teddy Sagi. And you know, when you pair that with Kristi Noem's, I believe she just said that it was perfectly fine that we're going to start introducing drones into our domestic law enforcement tactics, and slowly you start to see that it becomes this thing where there's eyes everywhere all the time. It is posited for your safety, your convenience, and they seem like siloed, like by different companies and stuff like that, but it is all just the same thing. It's all shit all the way down.
And then now, guys, people are walking around. They're popular, except they're more popular than they were the first time they tried this. They have these Ray-Bans, got them now, the Meta glasses. I mean, they look just like normal effing glasses, and they're fully recording you. They have like a heads-up display. You can see people. I mean, it's crazy. So now just people walking around wearing glasses. You don't know, are they part of this flock camera system spying on you? Yes, they probably are, because, you know, the makers of this technology have worked in some deals with these authorities, and like Mr. Peter Thiel there. Yeah, it's not just the phone maker. It's not just your local law enforcement that has access to all of this stuff. It's these weird billionaires. There's such a small handful of these people that rule everything. It's wild. They're all hanging out in one place right now, by the way, for the most part. Just saying. Anyways, but yeah. So
there was a fire there. We'll get to that, Ruckus. But you know,
that's a damn shame.
Peter Thiel he's not the Antichrist. He's warning us about the Antichrist. All right.
Oh, I never said he was the Antichrist.
He's just as concerned as everybody else as
Grok made this image. Grok, it's Grok. Blame Grok.
Hey, AI can't be held liable, right?
Let me read you.
I just a pro tip, everybody: start stuffing M dashes, the super long M dash, into everything you write right now on Facebook and on X. That way, if they want to arrest you for something you said, you can say, "Ah, that wasn't me. AI wrote that," because people seem to think everything written by AI has M dashes in it. Trust me.
Let me read to you out of this Futurism article. I'm sure you will appreciate this. It says that ICE enforcement activities under President Donald Trump have resulted in at least 33 deaths. Not to mention the unlawful detention of over 170 citizens there. So 33 deaths, they tell us there in the article from Futurism, resulted from ICE enforcement under Trump second term. Now, conveniently enough. Tragic.
That number again.
Very tragic. Okay. I think we covered most of that stuff. On to, oh, wait. I wanted to cover a post by 7 Seas. Let's put I'm high on hopium, so we're getting all of this stuff. 7 Seas doesn't think so. He's a skeptic, but trust the plant. We should play this probably before and after and every time in between.
Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump.
So 7C says you're not getting the Epstein list. You're not getting the real JFK files. You're not getting mass deportations. You're not getting arrests of politicians. You're not getting peace. You're not getting lower taxes. You never got the wall. Hillary never went to jail. You got the miracle and the bat scam, Derek. And you got a massive printing of money and rampant inflation. You got Aardvark's first administration. You're not getting, you are getting more miracles, more AI, bigger tech. You're getting $1 billion defense contracts, 1.5 trillion to the Pentagon. Trump's been promising H-1B visas and potentially the North American Union, i.e. North American Tech Day. And so you seem like you're not believing Trump's campaign promises there, 7 Cs.
So I'm pretty sure I posted that before he took office, and it
was February 25th of 2025.
Okay, so it was like 2 or 3 weeks after he took office.
Yeah,
and since then I've just been I hate being the guy that says I told you so, because it means I'm right about some really dystopian stuff. But like we haven't gotten any of those things that he was promised. Like I don't know how many times people need to witness politicians making campaign promises and then not fulfilling them to understand that every single one of them is always a lie. But yeah, it's been aging like wine, and every single time that they extend out the Epstein list deadline, or something like that, they annex another, or we infiltrate another country, whatever it looks like, I can just repost that and be like, guys, I said it at the beginning. I don't know why you think anything's gonna change. All I need is time, and it will eventually vindicate me.
There's another big one I've been noticing. Trump campaigned on his daughter, which I guess is not going to be part of his administration, but Jared Kushner, her husband, is not going to be part of this 47 Trump administration. He's a big part of it, all over all these deals, globetrotting around with Steve Witkoff in Russia, over there in Israel, just all over the place, brokering deals. But we were promised that he would not be part of this administration. Yet there he is in the background.
Yeah, I think during Trump's first term, he kind of learned his lesson, because Jared Kushner actually ended up getting implicated in that whole Mike Flynn, Donald Trump, IP3 International thing, which was essentially Trump was wanting to revitalize the American nuclear industry, which he has started doing now in this term, so that they could take the energy and sell it to places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar instead of, fixing our damaged energy grid. I would say artificially suppressed energy grid. And Jared Kushner got a lot of eyes on him because of that. So I think kind of keeping him adjacent to the administration in this sort of like honorary role with no official title just lets him go on doing all of these things. You have Stephen Witkoff, he's the envoy to the Middle East for the Trump administration. His son is actually 1/3 owner of the World Liberty Financial Token Exchange with Donald Trump's two sons. And so, I think we're seeing a lot of what they were saying with rebuilding the Gaza Strip as sort of the technate. I think they're going to be able to do that from the ground up as sort of a model and goal of what they're going towards, and then slowly implementing all the technology after they've tested it over here on us.
Steve Witkoff released a statement last week saying they're going to build a technocratic governance structure in Gaza, straight up using that exact terminology. So they're not even hiding it anymore. They're bragging about it. It's going to be the Riviera of genocide, apparently.
Well, the weird thing about Jared Kushner is all of the 666 stuff, right? I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, nobody's got this. I mean, because he acquired the 666 Fifth Avenue building. That's the big one. But like something about the gematria in his name. You look up his first name, Jared, and where it occurs in the Bible. And there's all these 6 references, 3 of them. It's so many surrounding that guy. And then I mentioned it earlier on the program. This is a true story. On his social media, I can't remember which one it is. It's Facebook or Instagram or something like that. The people are literally in his comments like all the time, ratioing that guy. Everything he posts, like, you're the Antichrist, and they don't do anything. They don't block the comments. They just let it go. It's like, I don't care, whatever. It's so wild to me, man. It's in your face, and it's like, why would that be unless it's supposed to be in your face? They want everybody to think, oh, this guy's the Antichrist. It serves them some sort of purpose to allow people to think that, unless he really is. I mean, geez, I guess if I was the Antichrist, would I truly care? I'd be like, whatever, pish posh, you little plebeian.
But doesn't the prophecy go that the world has to love the world is going to love the Antichrist? So all these figures, half the world hates them. You know what I mean? Like Trump, more than half the world hates his guts. So I mean, it's like none of these figures are looking like Antichrist to me. Maybe they're all.
It's going to be Sarah Lee then, because nobody doesn't like Sarah Lee.
Sarah, man, maybe. We're at the hour mark. Let's take our live commercial break, and then we'll come back with the old day 3 of Davos and take a look at directed energy weapons. I'll go first, and you two gentlemen plug. Everybody go to weaponizednews.com. Get yourself some stickers over there. We have some stickers. Get yourself some. We have the holograph sticker, the white background sticker, the clear sticker. Put it on your your laptop, your bumper, your guitar, your work locker, your hard hat. Help support independent reporting and analysis, broadcasting you here 5 days a week at Weaponized News. The link to the store is below in the description. Give us a donation if you don't want to patron our store. Any and all help is appreciated. Our Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Bitcoin wallet address, all in the description below this video. Go ahead, 7C's, plug away. How do people get a hold of you and support your work?
Absolutely. You can find me most active on X/Twitter. I post most of my research on there. I also stream when I have the time and availability and stuff on Twitter, on Rumble, on YouTube as well. Occasionally I'll get the itch to write an article and post it on Substack. And then I have some merch and stuff on my Linktree as well, in case people want to go buy a shirt or something like that. It's a good conversation piece. You know, kind of just having like, really, I have one that's it says medical industry on it with the medical symbol, but it's the medical part is crossed out and it says eugenics industry with like devil wings on the front of the medical thing. So really just like shocking stuff. People can be like, what is your shirt about? And then you get to talk to people in public about all the stuff that we all fixate on online.
All right. Ruckus.
Or you get to run for your life from ICE officers. Like, there's one. Get him. You know the drill, folks. Head on over to alternatecurrentradio.com. That's where you will find me and my colleagues doing our stuff, especially the Boiler Room and Sunday Wire. And then, of course, our friends and colleagues have podcasts up here as well, including Mystical American Patriot Society, the Odd Man Out podcast, and then of course the Roundabout Ruckus. That's my appearances on other programs such as this one right here, Weaponized News. At alternatecurrentradio.com you'll find links how to get a hold of me, or go to my X. It's AC_wordslinger. Send me a DM if you want help with your website, need a graphic made. If you're like, I want to sell cool t-shirts too, but I don't know how to make a graphic, but I have a neat idea. Send me your idea. I won't steal it. I'll make it your graphic, and then bam, now you can sell a t-shirt. But you're gonna have to pay me for the graphic the first time around. See what I mean? Anyways, thanks, Sam. That's that.
All right, awesome. Welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this January 21st, 2026 edition. We have 7Cs and Ruckus on the line. We covered ICE, tyranny, the rolling out of the North American technocracy in the first half, the surveillance state, tying all that together. This half, we're going to talk about day 3 of DAVOS and directed energy weapons. Old Alex Jones at the InfoWars is saying Trump tells globalists to their face the New World Order is dead, to stop to their tyrannical faces, and the rise of the nation state is unstoppable. I think old Alex Jones is misinterpreting all of this, to put it lightly, on him here now, because I don't see it that way at all. Let me just flash that up there so everybody can see Alex Jones posting this, fighting the globalists for the last 40 years or whatever it is. But I think he's badly, I'm taking it easy on him here and saying his analysis is wrong. What say you, 7Cs?
Well, I have a very distinct memory that this is the third time since Trump has taken office that Alex Jones has claimed that he has defeated the globalists in the New World Order. So I'm not sure which time was the correct time and which time he was lying about, but Occam's razor would say that is probably all three. I've gotten into it a couple times with Alex Jones. The first thing he's ever said to me in response was that not everything is a conspiracy. So that was really, really interesting to come from him of all people. The blatant sellout of Jones, you know, and I'm convinced that he's always kind of been like a discarded Rockefeller propaganda asset. But he was a lot better at hiding it in the early days. I think Bill Cooper had him pegged pretty early on, but you know, ever since the Trump administration became a thing, it's been like this slow sort of warping of his character to basically endorse everything that he's always warned about, from the digital currency to the police state to, I mean, I remember him calling Palantir like this little company. Even though they have like major DoD contracts, they have contracts with multiple countries throughout, like not only the EU but abroad outside of that as well. And you know, it's like shameless. You go to his comments and you see that everybody is basically, you know, calling him out for what it is. The same thing with like Jared Kushner. But I think the money's too much. I think that, you know, when it comes down to it, he's not really thinking about like, oh, how is this going to affect like my kids and grandkids' ability to live in this dystopian thing. I think that, you know, he fell on the cross with Sandy Hook and sort of tanked anybody being able to question those narratives ever again under fear of $1 billion in lawsuits. And so it's really just sort of shameless to kind of see how much, you know, they're putting it out there, and it seems like they're flooding the market with this talk to make it seem as though everybody agrees. When it comes down to it, like all the same shills that are saying, you know, the Patriots are in control, the same Q anon psyop bullshit that it's been for the past 10 years. You know, they're the ones that get the millions of views. They're the ones that are getting all the monetization. They're the ones that are getting the access journalism and stuff. And so, I mean, he's playing ball, and I think everyone can see it.
Well, I mean, he was sued for a gazillion amount of dollars, and he's still trucking. They shut down his studio like 5 times now, I think. I don't remember. I lost track. You know, I'm a big Bill Cooper fan, so I lost respect for Alex Jones a long time ago, pretty early on in my journey. But one of the more recent examples of like, man, I would love to give Alex a chance, but like, he had on air one time, this was quite some time ago, Jesse Ventura. Don't trust that guy at all. Take that with a grain of salt. But I was appreciative of what Jesse Ventura at the time was trying to do, because he was trying to talk about this right here, Dr. Judy Wood's work, Where Did the Towers Go? And Alex Jones was having none of it. I also have tried to call in multiple times back in the day to Alex Jones. You got to go through a whole bunch of questions and screenings, and if they don't like a single thing, they say they cut you off. They'll hang up on you. They'll make it sound like you had a bad connection. They'll do you dirty. At least that's how the way that they used to operate. And then, of course, I've, you know, in the recent years become friends and colleagues with a lot of folks who used to work with Alex Jones. Emphasis on used to work with Alex Jones, and there's a reason that they don't like to hang out around him for the most part. Yet a lot of them, you know, have the same amount of respect as most of us do. It's like, yeah, most of us came to this type of material and waking up to whatever thanks to Alex Jones back in the day. But, you know, he's not doing anybody any favors by sticking around, is all I'm saying.
So you don't believe Trump defeated the New World Order? Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, my money's on no. I'm normally not a betting man, but I feel pretty confident about this one.
Well, you could put this on CalSheet, Polymarket. Let's do it.
Yeah.
He also, one more on Jones quickly, because it's just so outrageous to me. He also posted that a video of Trump at the World Economic Forum. Quote, now, people will soon be prosecuted for participating in the rigged election theft of 2020.
Okay, there's this weird theory going around now. I think that's what that's related to, is this idea that Maduro is a CIA asset, that they brought him in because he's going to testify that the election was rigged because there was some Diebold voting machine shenanigans going on down there. I remember reporting about this on today's News Talk TNT back in the day about the shenanigans going on with these machines, and here we are. So I'm like, is this what they're going to do? Are they going to make that the official thing? Is like, oh, he's one of us, and he's like, this is proof, and now what, are we going to lock them up? Is he finally going to start putting people in jail? Call me skeptical.
I actually like where your head is, Ruckus, because I kind of see the same thing as like Maduro is falling on the sword, and I think he will testify, and they'll use that as justification to bring voter ID, digital ID, and blockchain all together into one, so that, you know, we have a voting system we can trust that has no corruption and things like that. Like, I think you're absolutely right. I think Maduro was in on it. I think Iran is in on it. I think any like major developed country is in on it. The express will of the people is like abjectly against it, but the people that are running the country are on the take.
Yeah, like they care what we think.
Yeah.
Day 3 at Davos, a fire was reported there. Davos evacuation. The World Economic Forum had an emergency as guests left coughing. And so I guess there was firefighters evacuated people from the main venue at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And no, it wasn't one of these aardvarks lighting fires in Patagonia or Chile. Just to get that out of the way, a White House official said the evacuation didn't affect President Trump. He left the Congress Center at 9:14 local time. I saw emergency workers, a cluster of civilians outside, and there's a couple of videos of people running and a little bit of smoke. It doesn't look like that big of a deal there, but I wanted to get that out there. Let's hear quickly, because I know I missed Klaus Schwab not being the head of it. And so, but we do have a short message from Klaus Schwab because we miss him heading up the World Economic Forum. And then we'll come back and get our guest take on the goings on in Davos this year.
I think that we are losing a narrative which has guided humankind since its beginning. It's the narrative that you are here and you owe your existence also to prepare a better future. If you go back to the agricultural society, even to the beginnings during the whole time of the industrial society, there was this drive to create a better world for the future. Today, with all the crises which we have, with the multitude of problems we are confronted with, I think we have become much more egocentric on an individual and also on a national way. That makes international cooperation so much more difficult, by the way. And I think we have to think about how we recreate this narrative. And here, I have to say I'm quite optimistic.
What do you guys think of? You miss Klaus Schwab as much as I do?
No, I don't. I think it's crazy that someone like Klaus Schwab can talk about egocentrism becoming a problem with people. And you know, I'm one to kind of like find the poetry in things, and it is ironic that you know the Davos that is taking place in the first of the next 4 years leading to 2030 is starting with the phrase "We didn't start the fire," and you know, so I think that there's some poetry in there and a little bit of irony, and it's not lost on me.
Well, the fire and the ice. There's also some. I mean, there's some Illuminati weird cultist stuff going on with that dichotomy there. There's some folks doing some work in that department. I'm sure you know who they are. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, just visit the Reddit threads, of course. Don't get lost in those rabbit holes, kids. I don't miss the guy, but I miss the getup. He apparently has no excuse to dress up like a Bond villain anymore. And I truly appreciate it. I don't know about you fellas, when the Bond villains actually dress like Bond villains. It's so much easier to know who they are rather than having to pay attention to the words that are coming out of their mouths. That's too tricky. So, you know, when they come dressed up looking like a freak villain, it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's a bad guy. You can tell, you know. That's like, you know, Bill Gates. No one trusts him because of that purple sweater. He'll never learn his lesson over that purple sweater.
This year's theme at Davos is a spirit of dialogue.
That's rich.
Yeah, that's interesting because all of them are financially invested in all of the platforms that censor us and ban us and, you know, spread misinformation and, you know, they're talking about rebuilding trust like there was ever any trust to build in the first place. It's interesting.
Our U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is there. Oh, by the way, side note, somehow didn't show up on 9/11 to the World Trade Center. and was also Epstein's neighbor, and a bunch of other stuff. Interestingly enough,
See the one who went to go pick up like his granddaughter from school or something weird? I don't remember.
I think so.
he said, presenting at the World Economic Forum, globalization has failed the West and the U.S. So he's there representing U.S. nationalist interests, allegedly. What do you guys think? Is Howard Lutnick, U.S. Commerce Secretary, genuine in his support for U.S. nationalism?
It's kind of a two-part answer, because I have to first explain that the push for U.S. nationalism is them sort of building what I like to call like decentralized centralization, where all of these, it's going to work a lot like a blockchain node, where you have all these seemingly separate things that are being propped up. And once the technology is in place, once the policies are in place, and once the population has been conditioned to them, it's literally going to be as easy as like an API update, and they'll have all of their databases talking to each other and communicating, interoperating. So you're seeing the U.S. pushing nationalism towards this technocratic agenda. You're seeing the same thing in China. You're seeing the same thing in Russia. And once we have this like global standardization, I mean, you look at things like cell phone networks, for example. You know, when it comes to it, that's a global like policy essentially for communication standards around the world. With all of these countries, 6G is supposed to they have a goal of launching that in 2030, and I think what we're seeing is this building up of this system so that they can turn on this network and have all of the supporting technologies behind it, meanwhile sort of capturing that like false patriotism that we've seen with the MAGA movement specifically, and in other places like El Salvador is doing the same thing, where they're building it up, and I think he's being honest about that. But the globalism part is a lie, in the sense that it is eventually just going to lead to more globalism.
Or it's like a fractured, splintered, multipolarism, not a bipolar world, but multipolar. And the thing is about this ownership concept with the tokens is it's literally like, if they tokenize everything and just these small handful of people own them, that means that we will be basically like renting them, and we'll still have access to do these things. That will also include people who do our work for us. The AI agents and the robots will also be renting the tokenized versions of them, or the credits to make them run or whatever, from our universal basic income. However it's going to work, just ask Elon Musk. He's weird. But the thing is, like, remember that expression? What body did we hear this from? You will own nothing and be happy. Oh, it's these same freaks right here in Davos. Interesting.
And back to that point, like when it comes to the tokenization aspect, one thing I forgot to mention was Larry Fink said that one upside was that we won't have like fees anymore. And I don't know about you guys, but I have transacted before with cryptocurrency. Every single transaction comes with built-in gas fees, and that is the fee that they take to execute the smart contract, and that would be a fee on every transaction that takes place on the unified ledger. So every single transaction on Earth essentially is going to be tax tracked, recorded, from beginning to end, middleman, it doesn't matter. So I don't know what they're talking about with this eliminating fees. They're building fees into everything.
They'll be
We just won't
hidden.
notice.
They'll
We
be
won't
there'll be
notice it.
hidden fees. It's
Yeah.
part of the cost. So no fee. Don't worry
Well,
about
actually,
it.
this is a good news. Actually, I'm being pro the blockchain prison system here, Mark of the Beast system. Is that if that's true, then the fees should actually be very tiny, because it's actually spread across every single living person on Earth. I mean, because what was that movie Office Space, right? Speaking of memo, did you get the memo? Where he had this little computer program that was just going to skim like a millionth of a penny off of every transaction, and it was so small that the individual person wouldn't care or notice, but it adds up over time. But then there was a glitch and he got it all like at once. I think they could very well, I mean, maybe the fees won't be so bad. Maybe we will literally own nothing and we'll actually be happy about it. Maybe this will work out in our favor. Who knows?
Always optimistic. I think the same storyline is in Superman 3, I believe.
Yeah, that's
as
right.
well, with Dennis Pryor in that one, skimming
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor
Yeah.
skimming
Dude, that
fractions
of
of a
all of
cent.
them, that one is a weird one. Was that the third one or was it the second one?
I'm going to say part 3.
I think you're right. I think it was 3.
He's working in a bank and figures out a scheme to skim fractions of a cent and make a bunch of money. Very similar to Office Space. Okay, so Trump was the big Trump speech at Davos today. A lot about. Well, let's just go through some of his quotes here. He says Denmark is a big, beautiful piece of ice, and so he's constantly trolling, down talking them. You guys think that? Well, he says a deal. Let me pull up the post from him. A lot of talk about acquiring Greenland. Trump said in a Truth Social post, he said, based upon a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs. So he's been using the tariffs as a threat to either take the silver or lead. He also said no military action. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Little Marco, JD Vance, and the whole Technocracy crew and various others will be updating you as needed. So I guess as of now, we're not going to kill white people in Greenland. Would liberals become MAGA if Trump kills white people in Greenland? What do you guys think?
Well, they killed white people just a week or so ago, and MAGA seemed to be cheering for it.
No. Will liberals become MAGA?
Oh, probably not. They need that false dichotomy to keep us fighting with each other.
Damn it. No way. Even if he just walks up, it just kills all the white people in Greenland?
Probably not. They'll
Man.
probably say they were like Antifa or Hamas.
They had it coming.
Paid by Soros.
Russians. They're probably working Russian spies, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I also thought it was interesting that you mentioned Mark Rutte being the general over NATO, because he got his start working at Unilever, which is essentially another version of BlackRock. They just happen to invest heavily in like food products and things in the grocery store.
Well, according to Trump, he's representing Denmark and Greenland in talks over U.S. acquiring Greenland. So now we have a Unilever executive selling off giant chunks of land to Trump. I mean, what a bizarre world we live in here now. But there's no it's all coincidence, no conspiracy going on.
No, just pump and dump. He does this with his tariff announcements. Remember, he announces the tariffs, and it crashes the markets, and then he goes, "Oh, I changed my mind. We're not doing the tariffs," and then they rebound. We've seen this play now for 366 days, right?
Yep.
Same right you just did with the threats of tariffs on NATO countries.
They attack him for doing this. They say taco Trump. Trump always chickens out, right? That's where that came from.
But they're missing the point that he's using it to manipulate markets and profiteer, front running with insider information.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We're just jealous. That's all.
Oh man. So I guess that, according to Trump, it's they're working out a deal. So I guess, what do you guys make of Mark Carney, banker, Prime Minister of Canada, saying the quiet parts out loud recently at the World Economic Forum? Did you guys see? He basically said the neoliberal world order that all of polite society brags about never was a thing, never honored, and it's over. What do you guys make of all that? And he's jumping on board with China's version of the new world order.
I actually didn't see the clip. I had seen a couple posts of people kind of like praising the things that he said. If you happen to have link of the clip or anything like that, I'd love to see it.
Maybe I do. I
You
do
just
somewhere.
played it yesterday. You might have it.
I got it somewhere. It's going to take a second.
The new World Order. It's not the old New World Order. It's a new one.
The new World Order. Yeah, well, I should have.
He's got a bit of a history. Mark Carney does. He comes from the banking world, doesn't he?
Yeah. Here it is. We'll play these two clips. This is the one where he says, "We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false." So he's saying all this since World War II, basically, this is all bullshit. What we've been saying to keep everybody in line. Here's that clip.
We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false. That the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient. That trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim.
So, yeah. And then here he is. Do we have the one? Oh, we have the T-Rex clip too, by the way, Ruckus. And I don't have the one where he's saying that he's joining up with China, but here he says we know the old order is not coming back. So they're saying we're in a new world order.
We understand that this rupture calls for more than adaptation. It calls for honesty about the world as it is. We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. We understand that this...
Isn't that technocracy, our new world order?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just laughing. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's right to a degree in the sense that the old version of what has been running the show is being essentially, sunsetted. And I think that that's sort of the, I can kind of tell you the truth a little bit, but also not tell you the whole truth. In the sense that it is because it's being replaced by this all digital, hyper accelerated, crypto based, wireless network that's going to cover the globe. And the old days of Henry Kissinger having to like meet people in person and coordinate business deal, all that's going to be automated now. And it's just going to be basically working 24/7 in their interests. And I think that is what they're referring to when they say that, the old order is dead, new one's propping up, because it is essentially the same thing, just on steroids times 1,000 at the speed of light.
I don't know. I think it's the changing of the guard. I think America is in its death knell, its death throes, and China is going to take over as the next superpower. I mean, it's not like as we go down, it's not like anyone on the inside here is going to be like, yeah, well, sorry guys, we're throwing in the towel. No, all the way down to the ground, they'd be fighting and screaming, we're the greatest, we're the best things. It's like, we're the hottest country on the planet. They might literally have their president get on the stage and say, we're the hottest we're the hottest country on it. Oh, wait a minute. I think our president just did that recently, didn't he? It's like he has to. I mean, it's like why are they gaslighting us so much all the time? They're like, everything's wonderful, everything's great, and you can see the people running in the background with their hair on fire, and the chaos is crazy. And people are like, please, sir, I can't afford like chicken It's crazy. Yeah. Eggs, milk. It's nuts. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they know that it's going down, and you look at a lot of the maneuvers that have been happening under this administration. Not only are they rolling in the technocracy fast and furious, and I mean fast, and I do mean furious, but they're also like killing the dollar. Like it seems like Trump is hell bent on like being the one who's steering that ship right into the ground, and that shocks me. I mean, because just the fact that he's embracing cryptocurrency is very strange to me. Because I've been a fan for a while, whatever it was back in the day when it was, like crypto is supposed to be, this is how we fight back against the banks. And then of course now we're like, oh shit, it is the banks. Now I'm like, I want nothing to do with it. But back in the day, I was like, I knew about it and I still know about it. And I was like, Trump was anti-crypto. He's like, no, I don't like Bitcoin. I don't like crypto. By the way, so was Larry Fink and all these jerks who say they hate it. Now they were secretly buying it this whole time while telling us not to. But anyways, but they were like, the Bitcoin is bad. I like the dollar. I'm a big fan of the dollar. Trump has always been vocal about how he wants a strong, healthy dollar. And then he comes in, and one of the first things he's like, I'm going to be your crypto president. Screw the dollar. The hell with that dollar thing. And he plays the tariff games. I'm like, dude, he's doing it on purpose. What would the end game be? Well, I mean, what if we're on the way out and there's a new player on the way in? It would appear, if that's the case, I don't know, China, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think you're absolutely right, because when we bring back in like the religious prophecy aspect of it, they talk about the fall of Edom, that is us, that is the West, that is the new Rome, and so you go back to like the CARES Act and everything that he implemented in his first term and how much that tanked the entire value of the dollar over Biden's presidency. And then he got to point the finger at Biden and say, look, what he did to the dollar, and then come in and just carry that torch forward and keep making those deals and keep tanking the dollar. I mean, the first Treasury Secretary that we had was Steven Mnuchin in his first term. He was a Soros banker that helped crash the I believe it was the pound. And then now we have Scott Bessent, who I believe helped crash the Japanese currency back in the 90s as well. And so it's weird that a guy who claims to like hate Soros and be against Soros and stuff keeps picking Soros bankers to run our federal bank. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's 75-degree chess. I can't see that far ahead.
It's just coincidence, bro.
Yeah.
It's just coincidence. It wouldn't a true American populist president go arrest the banks first day, take the Marines down to the J.P. Morgan and arrest old Jamie Dimon? I mean, a real true American populist president, that's what they would do, and that's not what Trump's doing. MAGA, sorry to tell you.
Quote Ron Paul, end the Fed.
Yeah. It's kind of rough seeing like what's going on with that whole in the Fed thing, in my opinion, because yes, we should end the Fed, but I've also seen like a lot of like crypto people sort of adopt that and say we need to replace the Fed with this like global blockchain crypto stable coin thing. And I'm like, can we stop at the first part? Because that I would love, but it's that second part, they're positing that as like our savior.
We should go back to the tally stick. I'm in favor of the tally stick.
Yeah. Let's exchange physical commodities privately between individuals as to our need. That, bartering sounds crazy, but then you explain this whole financial system that we have, and I don't know which one would be crazier.
Hi, ICE. I'd like to report an illegal immigrant.
The national debt, the official national debt, is becoming untenable here now and unsustainable. And at some point, people are going to stop buying the bonds, right? They're going to do the math and say it doesn't pay and it's not worth the risk. And we're just simply not going to invest in your debt any longer. And we don't know. Of course, the bankers know when that time will come. We don't know. But at some point, the math is not going to math. And it's going to be game over. And it feels like we're approaching that rapidly now as the national debt, the official national debt. That's not even all the unofficial unaccounted for unfunded liabilities, the black hole of money that Catherine Austin Fitts always talks about. None of that, just the official national debt is now unsustainable at this point. The interest on it alone is insane.
This is where I get confused because Scott Bessent was just on like one of the CNBCs or whatever, one of the financial programs, talking about the fact that what you just brought up there about the bonds and nobody's going to buy them. Well, here's the plan, allegedly, is the stable coins that they want to issue on this universal blockchain, or maybe our sectored blockchain or whatever, the ones that they own, like the Larry Finks and the Scott Bessents and the Howard Lutnicks into Tether, right? So whatever, it's the stable coins that are being issued that are going to be the buyers of the U.S. bonds. So I'm like, dude, they
kind of like quantitative easing, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. It's a secretive version of quantitative easing, and Trump just literally went after Powell because he's not out fast enough for Trump's tastes, I guess. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I just got really excited because I was literally about to bring up the fact that Tether has been secretly buying U.S. bonds, behind closed doors and all these secret deals for years. And
we just need to trust the plan.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, Tether, as far as like their amount of employees that they actually have running the business, they are considered the most profitable company in human history at this point, based on that.
I remember
don't let NVIDIA hear that.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I think you guys know the Brock Pierce connection with Tether, and you had mentioned Howard Lutnick and Cantor Fitzgerald being the custodian. Both of those guys are directly linked to Epstein. Brock Pierce was an Epstein client. Howard Lutnick was his neighbor. Howard Lutnick and Epstein were in Chabad together. Chabad is the controlling religious belief of the Likud party that is the party of Netanyahu that runs Israel and the Knesset.
Coincidences.
Yeah. And then, that headline with Iran saying that they just dumped $500 million, their central bank just dumped $500 million into Tether. And I'm like, how can people not see that they're all working in tandem?
Okay, let's move on to directed energy weapons. Here's Trump alluding to it, and there's much talk on the internet about the U.S. military used directed energy weapons in their kidnapping of Maduro their last month out of Venezuela. Let's take a listen to what Trump had to say alluding to directed energy weapons at the World Economic Forum.
Because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we got him in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess.
Seven Seas, did America use directed energy weapons in the kidnapping of Maduro out of Venezuela, as has been widely reported out there?
So I always go back to the person making the claim obviously has to provide like the evidence. I've seen a few different accounts that have, given like a detailed accounting from a first eyewitness perspective, detailing that, there was like some debilitating signal that was released in the country that like had people clutching their ears and like bleeding from their nose and mouth and things like that. I'm not really seeing like a whole lot of local publications that have mentioned anything about that, or any sort of like videos of people bleeding from their mouth and eyes and things. And it is one of those things where I have to sort of take them on face value, because I can't just waltz up to a military base and say, hey, can I see your directed energy weapons, right? So I have to assume that they are being honest about like their militaristic capabilities. when it comes to direct energy weapons. And it's weird that it's coming up now, because they have been using them for years and years and years. That there were reports of them using direct energy weapons in Iraq, for example, and that was 20 plus years ago. They contract a lot through companies like Boeing and Raytheon. Booz Allen Hamilton is another big one, which Edward Snowden used to actually work for them, moonlight for them when he wasn't playing an NSA agent. But they have resources on directed energy weapons, and have for 20 plus years. There's a page from the DoD website where you can go look into their partnership with Booz Allen Hamilton on directed energy weapon programs that are contracted through the DoD. You have the Directed Energy Professionals Society, which is like an institution that was set up for people that specialize in this field. That was established, or they've had that for, I think, since the early 90s, and have been giving like yearly talks on that. Basically, their own little Davos of directed energy professionals since 1999. You have like board listings and advisors and investors and all of these things. So in my opinion, I get dismissed a lot for saying that directed energy weapons exist at all, or that they, I imply that they may have been used during 9/11, and people start to think that I'm crazy. And it becomes one of these things where it's like, okay, so now that it's officially coming from the government, we need to go back in retrospect and look at all the people that were dismissed as crazy and conspiracy theorists and lunatics that were talking about directed energy weapons being used not only in warfare, but also on like targeted individuals and things like that. Because at the end of the day, the EMF that is happening right now is like slowly sort of microwaving every cell in our body. And when you start to pair that with like the coming technologies of 6G and the drones and the technocracy and the directed energy weapons, I mean, we could, and I'm not trying to demoralize or be like negative, but we could realistically see a future where you're killed remotely, instantaneously, and there is no official cause of death that doesn't fall under national security. You could just be sitting there and they press a button and you keel over.
Well, died suddenly. If everybody was up to date on their boosters, this wouldn't happen. Here is the.
By the way, I want to remind everybody: do directed energy weapons exist? Yes, you can see them everywhere inside your town.
Yes,
if you think that cell phone tower, I have a bridge to sell you. Anyways, go ahead, Sam.
I was going to just share this quickly. The right from Congress.gov, you can see Defense Primer Directed Energy Weapons is a press release January 7th, 2026. And just briefly here, they say directed energy weapons programs. A number of countries are invested in directed energy weapons programs. This is this in focus discusses a section of unclassified directed energy weapons programs in 3 leading military powers: America, China, Russia. Right there for all the conspiracy theorists is a press release from Congress saying as much that yes, indeed, these directed energy weapons programs do exist and are used by world power militaries, America, China, and Russia. And they even talk about the budget and go into more details in this press release. It will be linked at Weaponized News Substack for those that want to look more, or just simply search Congress Directed Energy Weapons Defense Primer. I'm sure you can find it. And then also, I covered the paring down of the Department of War critical areas of technology, and they also mention it. Scaled direct energy weapons. I won't play the clip because we've played it a few times here at Weaponized News. But right from your Department of War, scaled energy, directed energy, and so we've streamlined the critical technology infrastructure at the Department of War, and one of those critical areas of technology is scaled directed energy. And so it's proven with that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And then back to 7 Seas, tying it all together here, digging into the NDAA, which passed at the end of last year very quietly. Cognitive electromagnetic warfare is now a budget line item tucked in the NDAA, their 7 season. What are we to make of this?
So the explanation behind it coming from the administration was that it has to deal with how AI behaves cognitively in like the theater of war. I don't buy it. I think that's absolute bullshit, and I think it is actual cognitive, like electronic manipulation of people on a mass scale.
Like zap you with the freaking ray, right?
Anything from that to deploying varying signals through like wireless networks, for example, like the DoD could very easily hijack a cell tower and push out whatever sort of like pulse signal that they want to biologically affect people in a given area. I think back to things like Havana syndrome, for example. And I think that when it comes down to it, we talk about like the things that they put in the miracle that they happen to bestow on us in 2020. That's full of from everything that I've seen from more reputable people is like there was graphene oxide in it. They're talking about doing the biodigital convergence and the digital twin and stuff. And I think there are cases of people that are already actively being manipulated remotely through these various programs to change their behaviors, the way that they think. They talk about how EMF breaks down like the calcium ion channeling in your brain. That is the leading cause of autism. They tried to blame Tylenol for that, saying that it impacts calcium ion channeling, but EMF does it constantly 24/7, 365 days, whether you're awake, asleep, taking a Tylenol or not. Big Pharma is also evil. Just want to throw that out there. But I think that we are all subject to this like neuromodulation thing that's going on. And now that it's finally starting to be declassified, I think it is a sign of their hubris in the sense that they feel assured that everything is going to work out exactly as planned and no one's going to be able to stop them. And, it's not looking great. I would say save yourself individually as much as you can, stave it off as much as you can, not to demoralize anybody, but I'm all ears if anybody has a way to shoot down these satellites.
If you guys, either of you like to read fiction? Probably not. I used to. I occasionally do. I used to be a Stephen King fan. I'm not anymore. Stephen King wrote a book called Cell. I think they turned it into a movie starring John Cusack, if I'm not mistaken, possibly also Samuel L. Jackson. But in this book, or the plot line is that on a specific day and time, everybody gets a call on their phone, and it emits a weird signal, and they turn into raving, lunatic, murderous, like zombie type folks, and they just start killing each other. It's crazy. And then all of this stuff reminds me of, this stuff worries me very, very much when they're so out in the open about these technologies, because generally they're very hush-hush about this kind of stuff. But now they're quite bravioso about it. They're quite braggadocious, or braggadocious is the word I suppose I'm looking for. They're loud and they're proud about it. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. There was a technology that was very much a buzzword and talked about in the early to mid 90s, so much so that I wrote a school paper about it, and I've been tracking it for most of my life until the past 10 to 15 years when I was more worried about technocracy and all this other stuff. How come nobody ever talks about nanotechnology? Which, speaking of books, was there was a book written by Michael Crichton, the guy who wrote Jurassic Park. He wrote one called Prey, which is about these little nano AI robots that swarm technology. We've seen these drones that act as these swarm things that working in unison together. There is technology out there where they do the same thing with nanobots. So nanotechnology is still a very real thing, very much being worked on, and hardly ever being talked about, least of all openly by the military. The military will come out and say, oh, yeah, we're using directed energy weapons. Oh, yeah, we're using this thing called cognitive electronic warfare. Don't worry, it's just AI. Wait a minute, we're putting AI in military? Yeah, don't worry about it. Which AI are you using? Grok? Oh, that's, wait, what? Did you say we're using Grok? Hold on a second. Don't trust in Trump, trust the plan. Don't be a panicking. But what about the nanotechnology? What is the shit that we don't know about that they're sitting on that they don't tell us about? I shudder to think. But I mean, it's enough knowing that all of the devices and the 5G and the 6G, that's, you know, we got to win that fight now before we can worry about what it is they're really secretly doing to us. But, you know, it's hard enough when people think they need to wear 6 face masks against the virus that doesn't exist. But anyways.
Yeah.
Came from China. All right. China.
A bat.
Came from a bat in China. All right. That's the official story, and we're sticking to it.
Never mind that 5G launched, you know, globally then, and you know they're talking about a new pandemic coming in the next few years, right around the time that 6G is about to launch. And yeah, there's huge overlaps with wireless communication, radiation, and anything that has to do with SARS. And I've actually been like slowly going back on all the like alleged SARS outbreaks, and seeing like where they were reported. Was there any sort of report of like a recent signal deployment in that area? I will say it is very, very difficult to find like records like that without doing like, you know, obviously like them going through private companies, that it ends up being like proprietary information. It's not subject to FOIA. And stuff like that. And that's how they use the private sector to kind of skirt the Constitution all the time. You know, I think back to your point, you know, that they've had these technologies for decades and decades. And, you know, to your point about the nanotech, I think it was just a couple of months ago, MIT released a study that they had done where they are able to remotely manipulate, neuromodulate the neurons in the brains of mice to get them to exhibit different behaviors. And as for me, as a rule of thumb, is the second they announce a technology that they have, subtract 30 years, and that's when they deployed it. Give or take, you know, depending on the tech, but you know, if they're outwardly admitting all these things, I think that they have been in practice at least since the 90s when Bill Clinton signed the National Nanotech Initiative. But you had Richard Feynman back in 1967 talking about nano and like what their goals with it and like the infinitesimal miniaturization. And all we've seen since then is technology get smaller. So.
All right. I think that's about what. Any other final points you guys want to bestow upon the audience before we let you go here?
My tank is empty. You go ahead there, 7Cs.
I will say that you know, it seems like more often than not, especially in this community, you know, of the truther space that we have, that there seems to be very few people that I agree with from like front to back. It'll be, you know, they see the technocracy stuff, they see, you know, the global governance system that we have, but then they'll like be pro crypto through like a privacy coin or something like that. And I'm like, it drives me mad to see that, because it's like adoption is adoption at the end of the day.
People are looking for solutions.
Yeah, and it's tough because, you know, when you talk about like any form of collective, the second that you get, you know, 3 or more people into something, well, now you have 3 places where something is subject to being infiltrated and subverted and co-opted. You know, I think that's happened a lot with populist movements that maybe began organically very early on, very quickly get co-opted by members of the intelligence community and things like that, because our public discourse is all online. So they're going to see when, you know, people start to warm up to certain ideals, and they sort of get that advance notice. But I just have to commend you guys, because this has been like an extremely refreshing conversation. Ruckus, it is nice to meet you. I think your and I's vision of where things kind of go have been like pretty on par. Sam, I know you feel exactly the same way that I do when it comes to these things. So I just appreciate you guys doing what you can and fighting the good fight. And I know that when it comes down to it, it's so easy to just give up and then start getting $7,000 checks every time you post on Twitter, and the cost of living and everything increasing. So I think that we're really starting to see an era where principles are going to be sort of tested, and to see you guys kind of stick to your guns and still call out all of the things that you do. You guys are great. I appreciate that.
Thanks for the compliment. If you like that, maybe you should check out what we do on the Boiler Room at Alternate Current Radio on Friday nights. Maybe even join us one evening.
Yeah.
I think you'd be in good company, let's just say, for sure.
Absolutely.
This has been fun. I've been following your work for a while. I meant to mention it. I don't know if you want to let people know. One of the things you're well known for is like you go through some hardcore research of tying together some connecting people, places, and things. I don't know if there's a word for that or how you would describe that, but if you want to let people know about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to, one thing that I've always had issues with is like when I'm researching different topics and things like that, when I go from article to article, it's just, there's so many people involved and there's so much corruption and it's so incestuous, different shell companies and things like that. I'll actually share my screen here on, this is Polymarket. So I did a dive into them recently to see who all has invested and the different companies and entities that they're attached to. So I go through and kind of do these live on stream in front of people, and we'll vet and verify sources together. I kind of like help crowdsource things. I'm sure you guys know, as researchers, it is impossible for us to know everything about everything, as much as we may try. And I think there's thousands of accounts out there that are anonymous or have smaller reach than even someone like me, who have imperative information. And I think that when it comes down to it, us sort of sharing and collaborating and working in synergy is going to be the only way that we can stave this off for as long as possible, because they seem to all be working together. So why shouldn't we? And it goes into how this ties into Donald Trump, obviously his son being sort of an advisor, but they've also got funding from Peter Thiel and a couple of his acolytes who donated to like Rockbridge, which JD Vance was a part of, Chris Buskirk, who's now part of 1789 Capital, the Thiel funds. You have Howard Lutnick, Brock Pierce, Tether. I do it for that. Companies like Kleiner Perkins, which are like major institutional investments and sort of what they fund, Sun Microsystems, Apple helping to set up Silicon Valley, their partnerships with DARPA, people like Eric Prince and his ties to like private military contractors, 9/11 insiders, CIA, stuff like that. So if anybody's ever interested, no topic is off limits, no allegiances to anything but the truth. So feel free to come join us and drop some knowledge.
It's excellent work. You should do one for see where you are in relation to Kevin Bacon. That'd be fun.
Kevin, yeah. It's funny because there's been people that try to like dismiss my work by saying like I'm just playing the 6 ways to bacon, and I would argue that's how the world works. That's how all these people know each other, and it's nepotism all the way down. So
they don't make these secret clubs for nothing. Right?
Almost like there's a global conspiracy going on. And hey, 6 degrees. The IDF is using Palantir and other softwares to use 6 degrees of separation to assassinate people, saying, well, 6 degrees down the line, you knew Hamas. So boom, we're whacking you. And that's been widely reported here now. Lavender, I believe, amongst other systems there used for targeted assassinations of, you knew somebody six streams down the line that talked to an alleged Hamas. And now we got to whack you because you were, corrupted by their terrorism, and now you're a Hamas.
Yep.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this Wednesday edition and giving us your valuable insights and time today on day 3 of DAVOS. Keep an eye on the federal tyranny rolling out. It's being reported troops are just waiting to be deployed to Minneapolis, Minnesota for the Insurrection Act. And so troops are on standby in North Carolina and Alaska. It's being reported. So we may see full-on martial law. It's for our own safety and own good. Of course, get those dirty Somalis. And ICE doesn't need warrants anymore to enter your home. So we're in a brave new technocracy world here now, running at Operation Warp Speed levels of efficiency, of course. With that, let's sign off on this broadcast. Everybody, you can see right there, go to at Weaponized News on the X. Give us a follow at 7Cs _ at AC Wordslinger right there. Give these gentlemen a follow, and you can dig in deeper to their work and efforts out there to try to keep the conversation going, and don't be blinded by the tyranny. I know Trump's golden and all that, but it's looking pretty bad out here on Main Street for the rest of us that are not in the personality cult of Trump here now. And with that, as always, everybody do your own research, peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Wednesday evening, and we'll be back here for more Weaponized News on Thursday.